Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, and well, whatever you feel like you are tonight, you're here with us live on Wet and Wild Wednesdays with the Grass Factor. Matt is on his way home from work. He will be joining us in approximately 50 minutes or so. We'll give him some time to get home safely. There's a lot of storms down there in Tennessee, but for those of you joining us, I've got Ray here. Ray, how are you?
I'm good.
That is wonderful, and it's a great day. We just dropped our 100th episode of Burn and Return today on the channel. We're super excited about that. So if you have stuck around, really, if you count all the other episodes, I think we're well over 200. We're not really too much into numbers, but if you've been with us for all of the inside jokes, all the dick jokes, and all the Ron Henry jokes, we're so glad that you're back. And if you're new, everything will make sense. Just stick with us, listen along. It'll be a good time. So
I was ready for the challenge.
Justin, I just, I know you do lawn consulting, but would you do life consulting with me? I'd like to learn more about how you do it. I really would. Step one, using the garage as a backdrop for every video, right? I don't know. All right. So tonight we're taking questions here. We've got a bunch that have been backlogged.
Already came in.
Chat, and some folks that have shared things with us via Instagram and email. So if you do have any questions, you can drop those in the chat. The other way that you can get in touch with us always and forever, as long as the internet is up and Vladimir Putin hasn't cut the transatlantic lines under the water, you will be able to get a hold of us at mail@thegrassfactor.tv. That's a good address if you want to send us soil tests, if you want to send us pictures that you can't normally send on here. The other way, and the most frequent way that we answer questions and our community answers questions, is inside of our private Discord. That's a part of our Patreon. So if you're interested in that, you want to take a look at that. That's the only thing that we sell. It's just access to a bunch of like-minded, crazy motherfuckers that are all really, really ensconced in turf and life and everything that goes along with those things, whether they're professionals, DIYers, homeowners, whatever, and in between. And it's a great group of people to be a part of. You can check that out, www.patreon.com/burn and return. It is now, I think the lowest price one is definitely lower than the price of gas in most locations in the United States. So, we got the gallon of gas, we've got the gallon of diesel, and then we've got a barrel of crude oil. Those are sort of our price points right now. So if you're into the commodities markets, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, just fucking hop on Patreon, check it out. We'll go from there. All right. I have no idea where we're going to start. I think we're going to just go what J Pink has collated for us. Do people still collate things? I don't think people print stuff out very much anymore.
They do. I think they do. I mean, yeah, collation is a thing because if you're in corporate world, it doesn't count unless it's on hard copy.
There you go. So driver, if you're listening, in buyback land, you have to collate. We've answered that question. Okay, let me try up here. Okay, so this is a question. I don't know when it came in. Forgive me. I hope Robert's here. But Robert is asking us, do you have an updated resource for calculating GDD or growing degree days? 200 happens about every 14 days here in Raleigh. Is that correct? Robert, I'm going to go ahead and look here for your location and see. I know. So Greenkeeper used to do this. It's like the ultimate resource. However, they make you pay now. And I think there's a homeowner version that's maybe, I don't even know what the homeowner version is. Greenkeeper app. Let me see what the homeowner version is. Because it's a really nice tool that you can track both the apps and the other things here. Let's see. Nope. App. I don't know what that is. Pricing. Yeah, so
they want an arm and a leg for it nowadays.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't have.
They want an arm and a leg for it now. And if you're not willing to pay that arm, leg, and next unborn child, they basically tell you bye.
It's become a pretty robust tool.
Pretty mercenary. I mean,
they've added quite a bit of things. So I'm looking here at the North Carolina State University site, and I don't know. Let's see here.
I don't. I'm not sure they even deal in growing degree days. I mean, I think they just.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So let's look at Raleigh, North Carolina, and search. All right, and I'm going to click on the map below. So required inputs. Oh, this is going to be 2023. I don't know if this is actually giving us real-time data. Yes, it is. So here, it's basically giving us a chart. Let me get back onto vMix because I'm looking at my own screen. And JPink, if you haven't already, if you want to stick in Raleigh, oh, there you go. Okay, and then go down here to required inputs. So our base temperature. So if you're using this for, I'm going to assume, maybe I'm making a false assumption here, but as Matt always says, we're fallible, we make mistakes. Sometimes we have to make assumptions and answer these questions. I'm going to assume that this is for PGR apps, in which case we would be using a base 32F or 0 degrees centigrade. Okay, you can use this. We're also getting a word here. Colonel Corn, long time fan of the show, all the way back to First Up Radio days. Great dude up in Wisconsin there via Georgia. And he's telling us you can go on the Syngenta app, the green cast. You can do that. Sometimes I like this too, Mark. It works out good, but either way. So go down here. This is showing us 5.1 through 5.11. Slide down here. Keep going. Keep going. There's a little chart that's going to show us. There we go. So on that chart, you can see where our projected are. Yeah. You can show our aggregated GDD right in 2024 as that creeps up and keeps moving forward. So
did I do something wrong? Because I set this base temperature to 32. And this is still saying base temp 50, right?
Oh, I don't know. Is that the green line? Or is that the
black line is base temp 50 on this.
Interesting. Let's go check out Greenkeep or in our Greencast.
No. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Yeah, Syngenta Greencast has a pretty good, app that applies to the continental United States.
Greencast GDD. 90 days. There you go. That's a solid chart. So I use Ohio State has an excellent tool for Ohio, and that's what I focus on. But it's always good to learn. So if you just search for did you find it there?
I made the mistake of just going to their website and landed on the soil temp.
Just type in for Google Greencast growing degree days, and it should be the first link that pops up. Awkward silence.
I don't know zip.
Oh boy, I'm showing it here. I will. I'm going to pull this out, and I'll just share my screen real quick. Let's do it this way. So, a couple of things here while we're rummaging through this clumsily, which is all good. Is here we go. So, if you're using 200 growing degree days, that's more of a greens program on lower cut bent grass. So we know that we have to use incrementally higher rates on higher cut turf because we need more active ingredient for more leaf tissue. Basically, is kind of the premise there. And we also know that the growing degree day total on cool season grass, which is assuming that's what we're using this for, it's a higher threshold for high cut, right? So whereas low cut, greens height at an eighth of an ounce per 1,000 square feet, that's going to be closer to 200 GDD. We know that on high cut, it's going to be closer to somewhere between like 300 and 400, generally speaking. Okay. So in this site here, if you get to, so I'm just using Greensboro, so not exactly Raleigh. I understand that. I'm not trying to violate anybody's sensibilities in the state of North Carolina, I promise. And this is giving us accurate data here. So showing us our daily GDD, but this is base temperature 50. We're going to get into 32. So there, we're accumulating right now. I'm assuming these are probably pretty average temperatures. low to mid 80s, upper 50s to low 60s at night. So, we're at base 32, we're, 42. So, what is that, 78 and a half in just 2 days. So 200 growing degree days can happen pretty quickly here, right? As far as what we're seeing at base 32. So if you're going to use this as a metric and you're going to reapply in those intervals, 2 things to be careful of. One, make sure you're tracking at the right base temperature. That's number one. Number two is to make sure that you're getting towards the end of that window with your growing degree days before you reapply. So, there's 2 schools of thought there. One is that you're worried that, hey, I'm going to get rebound if I go too far outside the lane of that window. And that really depends on the type of growing or growth regulator that you're using. We could dive more into that. We're not going to. But I'm going to say that the other danger, Ray, on going too early is what's called stacking applications of plant growth regulator.
Yes.
So, it's not fraught with peril, but, going a little bit longer, getting yourself into rebound, it's not like some bottomless pit of hell or purgatory that you live in when you go into rebound. So, Ray, real quick, if you just want to describe, let me ask it this way.
Yeah.
Do you agree with my assertion that I would rather reapply closer to rebound than I would earlier in the interval with growing degree days and potentially stacking apps on top of one
another? Absolutely. I would err on the side of getting towards rebound rather than stacking and overregulating, because overregulating turf is not a good thing, because that actually, Ryan, I may describe as a near-death experience for grass. And I know that there have been golf supers that literally lost their jobs because their PGR applications stacked and the greens took a shit. So
yeah, and I think it's
just saying.
it's definitely more prevalent on the higher or lower cut. But regardless,
you can stack on the high. Actually, you can. Your danger of stacking is higher on the high cut stuff, because your high cut stuff doesn't necessarily metabolize the PGR at the same rate. Therefore, there's probably a different JDD. And of course, this is very poorly studied, because PGR applications are generally not studied on anything above a half an inch. So it's kind of like you're on your own. Use your best judgment.
I'll give Bill Kreuzer credit. He has really done a lot of this research on the growing degree day models, and really trying to understand the influences that plant growth regulators have, both positive and negative. And I give him all the credit in the world. And he's developed a really cool tool with Greenkeeper app around it. Not shilling for them, but I'm saying like his app and his software platform is really kind of pushing that edge of giving turfgrass managers and people that are willing to pay for it, good actionable data, things that you can look at and quantifiably say, yeah, we should do that, or hey, because we did this, we got this result, or here is a trend or a trajectory that we're seeing within the performance of the turf when we do these things. And those are things that previously you just had to have intuition, good observation, and recollection that you're doing it. So it's a really long answer, Robert. I hope we didn't confuse you. And if we did, just listen again, because you can always rewind. All right. Let me see here. That's Robert. So there's a response to, okay, that was a comment on an old plant growth regulator video that Matt did some years ago. Okay. Our next one is from Avion. He says, should ammonium nitrate be applied in cooler weather located in Central Florida, looking to apply next product Green Punch? Oh,
wow. Time out. Why are we applying? Yeah, why are we applying nitrogen to a warm season grass in cool weather? Why are we doing it? I mean, yeah, because let's kind of think critically here, and not what the turkeys on YouTube tell everybody to do. Please, let's think critically. Because generally, when you have something like St. Augustine, you normally want to lay off the fertilizer in actual cooler weather because, Ryan, may I tell you what happens when you push St. Augustine with nitrogen in cool weather?
I got to think not many good outcomes on that scenario.
How does large patch and Pythium sound like to you?
Well, when you describe it like that, I'd probably tell you to buckle up for the ride and maybe bring a bottle of whiskey. Never, if you're going to have to drink it or dump it on something to get rid of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like what, alcohol to sterilize the fungal infection, Ryan? Maybe. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like a handle of wild turkey. That ought to do it.
I'm a Canadian club man, but I guess what I would say for certain is if I did consistently juice St. Augustine in Florida, and I had all these issues with my turf and everything like that, probably just go sailing or boating out on the Gulf of Mexico and eat a whole bunch of pills. Sounds like a good way to do it. All right. So let's just so real quick, so we answer this question, we don't just dig on people. Is if you are in Central Florida and cooler for this time of year, I'm going to assume is 70s and 50s or something like that. But what would be the play here in sort of this pre-summer before we really ramp up into that high growth period? What would be your moves in this time of year, but with cooler weather?
Nothing. Do not apply anything. With St. Augustine, less is more unless you're collecting clippings. That is the nuance here. But of course, I do. Here's something to also consider. Those daily afternoon thunderstorms that Florida is famous for, Ryan?
Yeah.
Did you know that a lot of nitrogen is applied via that rainwater? So to me, I'm starting to scratch my head and ask myself now, why do we want to push the grass with nitrogen right now? Why do we want to do it? Because by my, figure, thunderstorm season is like right around the corner. I mean, it's almost here. It's almost here. I mean, and you know what? I would not take turf grass advice from somebody that has managed to lose both his St. Augustine and his zoysia lawn to Bermuda and various diseases.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me come back over here. Too many windows open. Bryce Skipper. What a name.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. Skipper, you would think boat captain, something like that, something nautical. I feel like Craftsman
or he's
truck
a Navy
series
man.
driver.
No, or he's
Craftsman
a Navy
truck
man.
Series. Maybe open wheel racing at some point in the future, but we'll see. I'm just guessing, speculating here. All right, Bryce says, in the midst of you guys talking or taking a well-deserved crap on Doc, I learned something. Ray made a comment on over-applying nitrogen being potentially harmful in zoysia, especially where Bermuda grows naturally. I'm plugging Innovation Zoysia out back in the middle of my current turf-type tall fescue, Mazama Kentucky bluegrass yard. Any tips? Also, is there anything that would spare zoysia but kill the other two if I wanted to fully convert? Can you sprig zoysia? Thanks, guys. Bryce, I am not the expert on this question. However, I am smart, skilled, and experienced enough to know that everything that you just said is going to be painfully fucking slow. Ray, would you care to expound?
Sure. If you plug zoysia into an existing cool season lawn, expect a 2 to 3 year transition, but there are ways that you can help your transition. If you're in an area where the summers are really warm, you can help your zoysia take over and actually set back the cool season grass by applying a little NPK regularly throughout the summer. You can do that, and that will favor the zoysia and disadvantage the cool season grass. I mean, that's my one tip. My second tip is, once you get to where the zoysia is the majority of your turf, it is super easy to destroy cool season grass. I mean, you have things like Monument herbicide. That'll do the job. You'll have things like Celsius herbicide. That'll also do the job. And those two herbicides, off the top of my head, are ones that are zoysia friendly, but extremely harmful to cool season grass. And lastly, you asked if you can sprig zoysia. You totally, absolutely can sprig zoysia. And most common source of zoysia sprig is from zoysia sod that has taken a trip through the wood chipper. And that comes out all ground up, and you just spread that on the ground, top that with some sand, and then this is the important one. Once you've done that, you will water that area at least 2 to 3 times per day, preventing these sprigs from drying out until they take root and start growing on their own. How does that sound, Ryan?
Life's short. Sod it.
Yeah, life's short. Sod it. Yeah. I mean, that's the and by the way, I'm imagining that where he's at, zoysia sod is probably not terribly expensive, although it might be logistically kind of difficult because of the distance. Because it sounds like this guy is in the East Coast. Or even Upper East Coast.
Yeah,
if I had to guess.
I'm curious, the location on that. If he's in here.
Yeah, location, because if you're in the Southeast, I know zoysia sod is easy to get. I mean, like if you were in, Tennessee or Kentucky or somewhere like that, I imagine that zoysia is easy to get. But then what kind of clued me is that Mazama Kentucky bluegrass, Ryan, I know that as strictly East Coast and Midwest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a niche grass too. You're not going to find that in commercial blends. You're buying that as a single cultivar. I don't know if I've ever seen it blended or mixed. I don't know.
And more like I've heard of Mazama as more like a highly maintained, very pampered, show lawn type of a situation. This is not your don't care and let it look bad kind of lawn. This is a lawn that looks good.
Yeah, it's a high maintenance bluegrass, but it also, if you maintain it correctly, it shows out for sure. So
yeah, it looks fabulous.
Let's see here. Wyatt Henry has got he is trying to sneak in a burn return here, and this appears to be a burn, but we will take a look at it. I'm gonna pull this article up here real quick, JP. We'll do a little synopsis here. Indiana fertilizer leak triggers 10-mile fish kill. Ammonia nitrogen poisoning reportedly came from a 30,000-gallon tank at Scott Miller Farm. Scott Miller, you done fucked up. All right. A fertilizer tank leak has resulted in a miles-long fish kill in central Indiana, environmental officials said Monday. Officials with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management said state conservation officers on Sunday afternoon reported a large number of dead fish in the waters around Flint Creek near West Point in Tippecanoe County. Agency responders determined the kill stretched about 10 miles, starting in a Flint Run tributary. Flint Run connects to Flint Creek, which flows down into the Wabash River, which, if you don't know, the Wabash River is probably the most important inland river in Indiana. All right. So let's see. Responders detected elevated levels of ammonia and nitrogen in the waters. They said came from a leak in a 30,000-gallon liquid nitrogen fertilizer storage tank at nearby Scott Miller Farm. The farm owner has taken steps to contain the leak Oops. Agency officials said. Oops was not in the article. That was an ad-lib editorial. Meanwhile, they recommended people and animals stay out of the water as the investigation continues. I mean, I would hope, Ray,
yeah.
I can remember when my dad had heart surgery, open heart surgery, and one of the first things they told him in the discharge instructions was that, hey, the first thing, please don't have your animals lick your wounds to try and heal them. And I thought, man, if this is what we got to start with, how bad did it have to get here? And the same thing in the article, they're like, all right, Ray, you're typing that up. Can you put in that last sentence, will you just remind everybody to stay out of Flick Creek for a little while? Is that how bad it's gotten, Ray?
Yes. People absolutely positively have lost any sense of self-preservation. That's my take on it. If they've just figured, I will make my own safety and security someone else's problem. Why don't I go swim in a river with millions of dead fish in it?
It's like they got seawater in this here creek. It's amazing. It's so salty.
Oh,
ain't salt,
yikes! That ain't salt, sir. That's I know that as UAN.
Yeah, that's your chest hair is going to grow great. All right, let's dive back in here. Wyatt, thank you for sending that in and bringing us such great news. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Okay.
As a quick reminder, Sunday is Mother's Day, so no burn and return.
Yeah, if you don't, I'm glad that you thought about taking your kids to the ammonia-filled creek, and the segue was Mother's Day. We're on to something here. We are on. Remember, it's not poisoning, kids. It's just waiting. All right. Let's see here. Okay. This is from our good friend, Sunglasses. If you don't remember Sunglasses, he actually called into a call-in show. We haven't done a call-in show in a while. We'll do one here again soon because we enjoy those chats and everything, getting to check in with a bunch of people. But J Pink, why don't you introduce us? I'll actually, let me preface this here. Sunglasses called in. He had a problem with a job. He's a pro. He does installs and stuff. He worked for a company before, and I think he has his own gig now. He's on his own, and they do installs, landscape, lawns, things like that, but mostly on the grass side. So Sunglass gave us this scenario in which they had this building that was reflecting light in these big windows. I don't know if you remember this episode, Ray. It was reflecting light and like burning this unirrigated grass that they were trying to install, and they had to do it like over and over and over. And it just never worked out. So they asked me, he asked me for some practical tips. I think Matt teed me up to kind of do some free consulting there. And so I offered him some, practical tips. And then I kind of finished with this, as my ultimate piece of advice. So let's go ahead and watch this real quick, just so we know who Sunglass is and what he's all about and how we talk to him. Probably not the best idea. Okay. So the last thing I'm going to offer you this guy is this. I want you to go down to fucking Sunglass Hut and I want you to buy 6,000 square feet of Ray-Ban, put them on the lawn and go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
That'll be $200.
Yeah. You see, I can always count.
Go ahead, let Ray finish.
On Ryan to say what I would never say. You see, because at the end of the day, Ryan, he's very sweet to people. However, he closes by telling them, "Go F yourself."
All right. So that's Sunglasses. And I don't know if that was his name before, but that's what he named himself on our Discord server when he joined. And he has some questions. He had a couple different ones. So we'll tease that and jump in here. All right. JPEG, show that first one there. He's talking about an install on a courthouse there. He is located, Ray, in Champaign, Illinois, which consequently probably ranks.
You want me to show the conversation?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Yep, that's cool. All right. For those of you that can't see, they're audio only. I'll read this. So Sunglasses asked me, "Hey Ryan, this is Sunglasses from Champaign. Need some advice on seed selection. We're managing restoring the Champaign County Courthouse. No irrigation, high traffic. The goal was to have the grass dark green, beautiful, drought tolerant, and grass that stripes with ease. I figured you'd be able to one to talk to about cool season turf. So I said, hey, definitely tall fescue. It's unirrigated, a big of an area of seeding. So he said it's around 30,000 square feet. I was thinking titanium 2LS, Pangea rye, or apple rye for stripe ability and color. Should I also throw in some KBG into the mix for fillability? Not sure how great the 2LS is with the lateral spread. Not great. And we won't be skimping on the seed side of things. They're willing to pay good money for it. So he says the federal courthouse is next door. It looks great comparatively. One of the reasons why they contracted my company, Goal, to shit on the federal courthouse. I think there's a lot of people in the audience tonight and in our listenership that would also agree with that sentiment, Sunglasses, for a variety of reasons, personal and professional. So you're pandering to a populist crowd here with that message, and thank you. A budget of around $5,000 roughly for the season. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good coin for 30,000 square feet, man. Of I think he's doing pretty good there. So I think a couple of things here, Ray. He's worried about striping. He wants it to look good. There's no irrigation, and I didn't get to talk to him much about this, and I thought I'd do this out loud because he had sent me another question, and hopefully he's planted by now. It's a little bit later. It's been a couple of weeks since he asked me the question, but I wanted to follow up with this and just say that without irrigation, you're probably looking at some type of overseed at some point. So if you're the first thing from a planning standpoint is if you're going to buy all that seed, make sure you buy some extra so you're not in a lurch and trying to like match stuff up or having to use something different because you didn't have enough or something like that. So that's step one, is that you're likely going to have to do some overseeding. And if you're kind of rolling your own, just be careful and make sure you try and match things up the best you can. And one thing I see when you roll your own in a case like that is sometimes you'll get a better catch ray on certain species. So like say that in his scenario there, he's got perennial rye in there with some tall fescue, potentially some Kentucky bluegrass. Maybe at this point of the season, May, not the greatest time to go ahead and seed bluegrass. It's going to be really tough to get up in an unirrigated situation. So now you're left with predominantly perennial rye and tall fescue. So if we go back and try to match that all up, and you have to roll your own on different seed rates and all that kind of stuff, you could get splotchy areas that have different textures, different colors, things like that. So just something to be aware of. This is sort of a nitpicky detail. You might look at me, Sunglasses, and be like, you need to go down to Sunglass Hut and you need to go fuck yourself. Maybe I will. The mall's open till 10 here, so I've got time. But the other thing I would say there too is I think it's overall it's a good plan, right? To have a little bit of diversity in your species because different things are going to affect that lawn for different reasons. Obviously a very popular mixture that we see here often in the Midwest and the Northeast, Ray, is like an 80-10-10, 80% tall fescue, 10% blue, 10% rye. You've got your rye there as your nurse grass. You've got your bluegrass there sort of as your sod former to, back up against some traffic and have some recuperative potential and all that. And then the tall fescue is the star of the show. You kind of get 2 or 3 or 4 of those in there that have some disease resistance on the brown patch side. Some have better color and texture and things like that. You mix all that stuff together, and it's a pretty solid blend. And I think that's what Sunglasses is trying to do here. So, that overseeding thing, obviously with the budget that you have to work with, I think it could be banging. I just think what you need to do, just like in the Sunglasses and the window situation, is manage expectations. Hey, we're going to get it there. Spring seeding on anything cool season, especially in the Midwest and Champaign doesn't sound like it's an inhospitable place, but it can get god awful hot, humid, and just absolutely fucking disgusting in the summer there. A lot like St. Louis, which isn't too terribly far away. And so, just make sure they know what they're in for and be ready to jump on it, late summer, early fall to do some overseeding and push growth when you have the weather. So hopefully it's a cool summer and it rains, every 3 days about 1/3 of an inch and everything's awesome. So let's tee up the second question here from Sunglasses. And let's see what he's got. He's got there was a second one there, Jay Pink. That was the time frame about Tetrino. I could just read that one.
Mm.
So what is the time
Sure.
frame in which Tetrino should be applied for our area? So Ray, real quick, can you tease what is Tetrino for those of us that don't know?
Tetrino is another anthranilic diamide insecticide that is very closely related to chlorantraniliprole.
Oh, you said it right.
However, yes,
Sorry,
hey,
Alan.
I'm one of the few people in Hawaii that can even say chlorantraniliprole. I mean, I feel special. But anyway, Tetrino is the brand name for tetraniliprole. And the difference between tetraniliprole and chlorantraniliprole is onset and duration of effect. Tetrino is faster acting, but does not have as much of a residual. So, Ryan, I'm thinking that in his area, don't you think that this month is about when you should be applying Tetrino?
Yeah, so the chlorantraniliprole is the acelepryn, or Durentis now too. I can't just say acelepryn anymore. Those two products, that active ingredient is much more water insoluble than what tetraniliprole or Tetrino is. And so, with that being said, the timing that you'll see most commonly for acelepryn and Durentis is sometime like very early April all the way through the first part of May, maybe even up to Mother's Day, depending on where you're at in the country. Very forgiving too. I know we've talked about it on the show before. I had a question about it. I actually need to go dig it up for Lushy because he asked me about it last week, I think, which is, there was a study from Oklahoma State. It was way back in like 2008, but they showed better than 90% efficacy on applications of acelepryn at that time, chlorantraniliprole, all the way up and through July, right, on beetle larvae, so in grubs. So the idea there is that you'd like to get that out early because it is so insoluble. Tetrino, kind of the nuance there is that it's a little bit less expensive, so there's a little bit more bang for your buck on that.
However,
however, the timing of it is completely different. It's much more akin, and I think this is a good thing for most people. So the folks that are switching to the diamides like Tetrino and like acelepryn and Durentis are most likely coming from merit or imidacloprid. This product, Tetrino, lines up more with a traditional merit timing here in the Midwest. So we'll call that sometime from maybe Memorial Day at the very earliest, I would say. Father's Day is probably going to be like your peak time to get that out, generally speaking. So, Tetrino falls in that realm. This is anecdotal and just stuff I've seen. I've not seen any quantitative data on this, but it is supposed to be slightly better on armyworms and a little bit better on chinch bugs. However, acelepryn is lights out on armyworms. It does a great job. So you are getting more bang for your buck over a merit application. So from a timing standpoint, it fits in really nicely. You don't have to change anything about your rounds and your setup and everything like that. The way you offer, the pricing is going to change because the pricing between these two products is drastically different. And when I say two products, I'm talking about older technology with the neonics and imidacloprid versus diamides and Tetrino and even acelepryn. So you can fit those anywhere you want. Look at the numbers. Both equally effective. The diamides are lights out on grubs. They're extremely safe for humans, extremely safe for pets. If you haven't switched to them yet, you really should. There's no reason not to. I understand people will whimper and moan about cost. I've been using imidacloprid for 30 years. I'm telling you, to not have callbacks on grubs. I mean, there is no bigger. I will say that unequivocally. Maybe I don't know if Matt will agree with me. I'll ask him when he gets on the show here in a little bit. But I don't think there's a bigger unforced error. I love it. I love tennis, right? Unforced errors are like, a good sign that you're going to lose the match. I don't think there's a bigger unforced error out there right now of having a callback for grubs. Like if you were to use diamide, I don't care if you use Tetrino, Durentis, or acelepryn, you will not have callbacks for grubs as long as you made a quality application, bar none. If you were calibrated, You hit all the spots, you had coverage, everything was working correctly with your equipment. There should be no callbacks. So if you're using imidacloprid, you're getting callbacks, you're having to reseed, you're having to apply dialogues, do all this other bullshit. You're missing the mark. You're not saving money. You are not saving money. So
yeah, you're losing money. I mean, take that one to heart, because the other factor is that imidacloprid just does not have the longevity that chlorantraniliprole does.
Real quick,
it does not.
And you had brought this to my attention. I never really thought about it, and we talked about this on a. It's funny that Sunglass is asking about this. We talked a lot about this with the guys Turfology way back when. This is like 2 years ago. But talk about real quick the photodegradation, right? So if I apply imidacloprid and I leave it out without water, right, versus if I do that with Celin Durus, Durentis, whatever, can you really quickly just harp on that and why that's such a critical factor too?
Okay, here's the known issue with an imidacloprid application. Imidacloprid degrades rapidly upon exposure to UV light. So say you tank mixed imidacloprid with your spring round application and you sprayed it out on the turf grass, and that imidacloprid sat on the turf grass for longer than a day. You just lost your imidacloprid application, plain and simple. Whereas if you did the same thing with Tetran, Celin, or Durentis, you literally have several weeks to water that application in, and it'll still be effective. That is how environmentally stable tetraniliprole and chlorantraniliprole is. In other words, you can apply that and you can wait to water it in. Whereas if somebody applies imidacloprid, I'm on their ass to water it in yesterday for two reasons. First reason is for the photodegradation. The second reason is to prevent bees and other pollinators from being exposed to residues of that product on the grass.
There you have it. Sorry, I'm gobbling up my ice. Let's see here. Oh, all right. So this is kind of a deeper dive. So let me save Brandon's till the end, J Pink. We'll get into those photos and dive into that if you don't mind. I know I'm messing stuff up. Okay. Because I don't want to suck all the time and make sure we answer all these other questions for people that are here. And we'll get to Brandon's though. Blind carbon C0 copy. See what I did there? Soil test questions. Central Texas 6.9. Nice. That was him saying nice, not me. But yeah, low NPK, high calcium, decent sulfur and sodium. Everything else is low. AMS urea, or should I consider balanced or something to help micronutrients? Well, without seeing the soil test and just kind of going off this description that you have here, low NPK.
Ryan, I have concerns already, because 6.9, I'm not believing it. The low NPK, I'm also not believing it. The high calcium, I am believing it. And, you know, Ryan, I suspect that this is a my soil test. And you know why I'm suspecting it's a my soil test?
Because N is mentioned?
No, because you cannot have high calcium and a 6.9 pH unless that sample is subject to hydrolysis under anaerobic conditions. In other words, did it take a trip in that sample cup across the United States for 1 week so that your actual pH is more like 7.5? Having said that, though, you see, I've had to become a very good detective, and I've seen a lot of my soil tests, and this is what always jumps out at me: high calcium. That just jumps out at me every single time. And of course, the pH looks okay-ish, but when they test it in an accredited and verifiable and validated manner, their pH is at least a half a point higher than what the My Soil test says it is.
He did confirm it's a My Soil test.
Whoops. Yep. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell him. Yes, you do ammonium sulfate as your nitrogen source, and I would probably get another soil test from a accredited and validated lab to see how much potassium and phosphorus you need. How's that?
Yeah, he says he's going to get a Texas A&M test. You're pretty clue.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty,
okay. Yeah. Okay, that would be a good idea. Good. All right.
So that being said, let's move on here. Let's jump back in, and we are going to Benworth when I can't ask that question. How many? I'll ask it. How many Ron Henrys do I need to apply to a bent grass green to burn it out? As much as your wallet can afford. Eric, 80, using Strobe Pro G, being that there are 2 frac modes, I think he means frac codes, does there need to be a rotation or can it be used all season long? So I believe Strobe Pro G is going to be their version of Headway. G. Let me look at that label just to make sure.
I have another question. Why are we applying that much azoxystrobin and propiconazole? Why are we doing it?
Yeah, so that's my question too, is that, yeah, they're broad spectrum and they both have high notes, but from a rotational standpoint, you know, there's not a whole lot of pivots unless you're going to spray something. So that's my other question too, is, you know, if we go to Pillar G, or if we go to any of the other commercially available granular insecticides that are going to be,
and fungicides, yeah,
or not insecticides, fungicides rather, excuse me, it's going to be a challenge to rotate. So I would be curious more. I always say this, right? If you tell me what fungicide you're going to use, I'm going to answer your question with a question of saying, well, what disease are we, or diseases plural, are we going after?
Mm-hmm.
So I've described this approach before, Ray, and this is talking specifically on cool season. And it would be that, you know, listen, if you want a fungicide plan that's simple, my advice would be to pick the baddest MFer on the block, as I call it, right? The disease that is going to cause you the most struggle, strife, and problem.
Pain. Yeah.
Whether that's sudden turf loss or repeated instances of issues, things like that, and whatever the best possible fungicide that you can apply given that situation, you go for it, right? And I also think formulation is important here too. You know, from a standpoint of propiconazole being, you know, a wise choice for, say, you know, something that is not a root-borne pathogen, and watering it in, it's going to be kind of difficult, right, for any of the foliar pathogens based upon its mode of action and the way that it works. That's just as an example of the Strobe Pro G. So that all being said, we go back to the baddest MF on the block thing. We deal with that, and then all the other stuff is just sort of, all right, well, if it happens, it happens, right? If we get dollar spot, we're going to get dollar spot, and then we'll fertilize our way out, right? Yeah. And you look at different other ways culturally that you can manage some of these other diseases and fend them off while you're, you know, trying to keep the worst one, the one that is the boogeyman under the bed at night, away. So I would start more with what you're trying to push back against and what are historical issues and patterns, because I will say that is that managing turf in a variety of settings, you know, for the last however many, you know, 26 or whatever years, is that you will see certain patterns develop in terms of trigger points, areas that are showing signs of disease first, and those are you learn how to identify those diseases and use those to treat accurately and make either curative applications or preventative applications to deal with those. So I would first identify your disease that you're going after, select the appropriate product, focus on the worst one, and if you want to add more defense, build a calendar around that, right? To use the best product that you can at the right time for that particular disease. So suffice to say, I always learn about plant pathology before I learn about fungicides. That's how they teach you in school. They do it for a reason.
Yeah, I mean that's why I have the same questions, and knowing what I know, Ryan, I would be more afraid of Pythium on turfgrass. And I can also tell you that the combination of azoxystrobin and propiconazole, contrary to what all of the YouTube influencers say, is not an appropriate preventative or curative for Pythium. It's not.
Yeah. No.
I mean, this is, in other words, if somebody wanted to routinely apply a preventative to their turf, I would actually turn them towards regular applications of sprayable phosphites.
Yep.
I would actually go there. And the reason why I'd go there is because that, to me, targets the thing that I would be most afraid of in turfgrass. Because I'm not afraid of the minor foliar leaf spot or dollar spot type diseases, Ryan. I'm actually afraid of Pythium.
Yeah,
that's
say that's devastating.
That's horrific. I mean, that's the one where you're going to lose your grass in about a day. That's it.
And it's it's not like it's going to grow back either. Okay,
no.
Let's see here. AE asks, what will stacking do to a fescue lawn? I don't have a golf green. Stacking at any height of cut of turf, right, is we're talking about PGRs again, is it will literally stop your grass from growing. So when we look at PGRs, let's just try to get a quick answer so we can keep moving here. But we look at the amplitude to which they suppress growth, and typically that's going to be for Trinexin pack, which is Tenex or Primo. That one has a much higher amplitude, upwards, if I remember correctly, 50-60%. Don't quote me, but something like that. And
yes, at least that much.
Imagine if you stack that and you take 50% and you turn into 75%. You turn that 75% into 85 or 90%, and then you do another, so
and then now you're up to 100,
which it's not growing. So it doesn't matter species height of cut, you can do that within those windows. Now, I will say that the windows that Bill and his team, Dr. Bill Kreuzer, has developed, puts in a safety margin and factor that will prevent most of that from happening. Okay. And Aldo